Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Let's fucking go. Joining us today is Ved Luhana. We got put in touch by our mutual friend Manav. Actually, he was guest number two of my podcast. So, yeah, super excited for today's episode. And how about I pass it off to you, Ved? Just to do a quick intro to yourself, what you do, and so on, and we'll go from
Yeah.
there.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on, Idris. It is a pleasure. I was taken aback. I was like, wow, this is very kind of you to invite me on. Not sure what. I was like, I don't know what I can speak on, but hopefully something interesting for everyone to hear about. But
Yeah.
yeah, as Idris mentioned, our mutual friend Manav put us in touch. And yeah, I'm Ved. I am a product manager by day, and then I have a podcast called Thinker's Table, which focuses on stories of deep tech operators. And then I also have a community in London, which is called Vibe Coder House, where people come along, such as AI engineers, and we basically hack along in the same room together. So yeah, that's kind of me.
That's awesome, man. Dude, thanks a lot for again coming on, but also just giving a quick intro to yourself in terms of your full time work as a product manager, and also running Thinker's Table. How long have you been, yeah, running Thinker's Table for whilst managing your time as a product manager?
Yeah, this is actually a funny topic for me, but also for people who know me, because I started the podcast actually a very long time ago and just wasn't very consistent, which is obviously the main thing you need to be with a podcast, but we
Mm,
live and we learn. But
mm,
basically, I started the podcast back in 2023,
mm.
so almost 3 years ago. Put out 2 episodes, got some good traction, and then for some reason stopped. It was really funny. I think I got in my head about like, oh, it needs to be constantly improving. It needs to be like sound better, and I think I tried to perfect it too much. I don't think actually the first episode is still up, so you can go listen to it. But the intro music was so bad. I like put together like a bunch of random musical notes, and I was like, this sounds tech-ish. Obviously,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
we're like really blessed that we have like AI music, so like I use
yeah,
Eleven
yeah.
Labs and whatever. But
Sure.
yeah, so been in theory doing both for the last 3 years, but really started focusing on podcast, the middle or the start of last year, so start of
Nice.
2025.
Nice.
And was thinking about like what do I actually want to do other than my work, and
Yeah.
podcasting is something that feels like fun to me. So yeah, that's
Mm.
kind of the timeline ish. But yeah, it's funny you ask about how long have you been doing it, because I don't know if it's a fair assessment to say I've been doing it for
Yeah.
3 years.
Thanks a lot for that. And obviously, for everyone listening, like the purpose of this podcast is just to showcase to people how we're sharing stories about people working a 9 to 5, but also pursuing their creative side hustles as well, including podcasting, for example. Two reasons why we're doing it. Number one is to showcase that hey, it's possible. You just hear the stories of how people have made it, but also number two, if it resonates, just fucking start.
Hmm.
So and
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and obviously, hopefully this today, our chat today will dive into like, how you've gone through your journey, but also like maybe there's some tips about like we can share to people as well. Um,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I just quickly on product management, like how did you end up in that? Because I've been listening to some of Thinker's Table episode, and you started off at AWS as well before.
Yeah. I have a bit of a weird way into product, not your traditional kind of path,
Yeah,
but I basically was studying at the University of Bath. They have
yeah,
a placement year. So during that placement year, I did a series of internships. One of those was AWS, and one
nice.
of them was a place called Bitpanda, which
Ah,
is a European fintech that focuses mainly on crypto, but basically does a bunch of other stuff and serves a lot of Germany and Austria. And I actually joined them to do a strategy role.
mm,
But actually, it became very clear that I was really keen to understand more of the technical side, and I kept on being in meetings with engineers and like doing the strategy on like the product, because I was a user of the actual product. Like I used to trade crypto, I used to
mm,
interact with DeFi, and I used to be like, oh, I hate this experience, I love this experience, which is a very product minded
mm,
like thinking process. So I then went to my manager and mentor at the time, a guy called Pavir Patel, so shout out to Pav, and was like, I really want to be a product person. I think it makes a lot of sense. He was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I went back and started being a product manager there. And then since then I've joined obviously a different company, and I'm a product manager there as well. But
Nice.
the entrance into product actually became like being the user of the product and being like,
Yeah.
this really sucks as a user experience, and then going and being like, I had the tools to build it because I was at a company that was building a very similar product, so let's
Yeah.
go build it in a better way.
There was a point where I was quite interested in product as well, and then I had like sort of like
Nice.
a colleague who was like kind of like soft mentoring me, and he was like, "Oh, read up the mom test. Have you come across
Yes.
that?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
I
use it. I use it all the time in work. It's the
really,
best. It's the best framework.
yeah, I love how it's just like the frameworks kind of like make sense, and then you kind of like when you sort of like replicate into like how a company sort of like launches their product, go to market. It's just like yeah, it's just it's pretty cool. I'm quite curious to hear your thoughts. Obviously, the rise of LLMs coming in, the also with various tools, vibe coding as well. Do you think the barrier to entry for someone to enter product management has been decreased due to the fact that like someone could say spin up like a here's a V1 of like what I can do with this current iteration of this product based on sort of like taking on this product pain points, and then here's how we can here's why we should implement it to the overall company product, for example. I don't know if I'm making sense, but like
No, no,
um
you are. You are. Um, I think my take on it is no, it's kind of the opposite. I think
mm,
being in product has gotten harder because actually the key role or job of a product person is actually knowing what people want and
yeah,
knowing what the problem is really well and knowing what the best possible solution looks like either for your company or your product or
yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah,
And I think the thing that's changed is you used to have very clearly a product manager, a product
yeah,
designer, and an engineer. And I
correct,
think those roles have just collapsed. So
correct, yeah,
either as a PM, you're either more of a design focused PM or you're more of a product engineer now, which
mm,
I don't actually see that many product manager jobs. I see more product engineer jobs.
mm,
Because with vibe coding, if I
mm,
know what I want to build, if I know what needs to be built, I can
mm,
now ask Claude to go build
good,
it, for example.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think the roles have collapsed, but I don't think the actual product management job has got any easier. I think it's gotten way harder because it
yeah,
is so much easier to build. So knowing what the right thing to build, or the right thing is the wrong way to put it, but knowing
yeah,
what to build for your user and knowing their problem really well
yeah,
has actually got way harder. And also, you could argue that with AI, you can build lots of stuff, and therefore your user can be fatigued. If you are a social media app or I don't know, some sort of habit tracking app,
mm,
and you put out a feature every single day, because in theory, with Claude Code or any other vibe coding tool, you can produce a feature in a day now.
yeah,
That means that your user is going to be overwhelmed, and that means that they may
mm,
not even know what they want, and they may be like, "Oh wow, this is too much. Let's switch off in a way," or like, "Let's go back to simplicity."
mm,
So I think it's actually made things harder, to be honest.
mm. That's interesting. What's your current tech stack? Out of curiosity, vet.
So I have more of like I think I'll walk you through like the LLM stack, to be honest,
Yeah,
rather than the
yeah,
tech stack. But the LLM stack is um, I use Claude for pretty much 90% of stuff. But when I say for 90% of stuff, that's for coding
yeah,
and making plans.
yeah,
It's really good at I quite like markdown files. So
mm,
and Claude and like Anthropic in general
yeah,
basically have a lot of their structure around markdown files. So they've
mm,
got like agent.md files, they've got skills.md files, which is
mm,
basically to give your sub agents or to give your agent like the ability to understand what it needs to be building
mm,
and what roles it needs to take on in different parts. So Claude for the majority. I
mm,
use a lot of Gemini to basically do any kind of creative work. I think it's really good at making graphics. It's
yeah,
really good at being a little bit more on the edgy side of like, oh, here's this random post, and it does it really well. So
yeah,
Gemini for that, and then ChatGPT I've been using less and less. I think I will get rid of soon.
yeah,
I use a lot of Cursor
yeah,
sometimes when I want to go away from a terminal experience of coding or vibe coding and then go to like basically want to use an IDE and have a look at the code as I'm doing it.
mm,
But other than that, tech stack wise, I'd give a big shout out to Superhuman. Superhuman
yeah.
for emails is next level. It literally
Yeah,
changed my life, has changed my
yeah.
life. It's so good. So yeah, that'd be part of the tech stack as well.
No, that's awesome. I mean, there was a point where I was literally obsessed with Superhuman just because you can kind of like see when people open your emails, like, oh, how's today?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, I know you're reading it, but I'm just waiting for you to get back to me.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is a good feature of it for sure.
it feels like the way that we're heading to right now, it's either you adapt to the age of AI, where you get used you say diversify your use of the LLMs, but also be flexible and like sort of like expose say cursor or superhuman, etc. Either you sort of like get on with that, or if you choose to not get on with it, then you're just going to be left behind by those who are basically adopting those. And would you say like that would be sort of like the future of like where someone who wants to catch up or maintain in this employment race should do?
I mean, obviously, I think being AI native is now kind
Mm,
of like a prerequisite to
yeah,
actually having a job. I think for most companies, they want you to be able to actually orchestrate agents to begin with, but
yeah,
also be AI native.
yeah.
So I think yes, it's definitely helpful. I don't think
Mm,
it's the only thing. I think there are some jobs out there, and I think it's obviously like it's a time thing. As time goes along, it will become more and more important. I think
yeah.
still for the next year, maybe two,
Mm,
and you'll be okay with like being able to just disseminate a problem. I think problem solving skills are as important as knowing how to whatever be great at agents, because at the end of the day, if you don't know how to solve the problem, the agent can't solve the problem either, because like there is no problem to like if you don't know the solution to the problem, the
yeah.
agent can't do it for you because
Sure.
there's no solution. So I
Sure.
think that's super important. But I think there's a lot of doom and gloom. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, especially on X, to be like, oh, there's going to be no jobs. And I do
Yeah.
think you will see a rapid decline in employment. There will be like
Mm,
half of the amounts of people employed by 2030 as you do
mm,
today.
yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's a case of there will be some sort of transition plan to
Mm,
be like, okay, now everyone's unemployed. What do we do?
mm,
And what that ends up being, I don't know. I have no
mm,
inkling. But I think there will have to be a mass solution for when people do unfortunately lose their jobs.
mm, mm. Got you. Before I segue into podcasting, if someone were to ask you, "Hey, Ved, I'm thinking of getting into product management. Like, what would, especially now, like, say, imagine like a fresh grad out of uni, out of Bath
Hmm.
University, that hey, like, I'm get to product management. Like, how would you advise their first steps, or like, what they could read up on, or types of internships or networking opportunities, etc.
Yeah, I think Mum Test, great book, well
Yeah,
worth reading.
yeah,
0 to 1, classic.
mm,
Every product manager has and does read it. It's a great
yeah,
book. I think honestly though, the key core skill of product is actually just knowing what your user wants and understanding and figuring out what your user wants. So I
mm,
think in my eyes, if you wanted to get into product today,
mm,
there's obviously the route where you can go and join a business, be really good in their like strategy or whatever department, and then transition. But I think there's
mm,
something to be said that, if you are a user of, let's just say, I don't know, Gmail, and
yeah,
you really, really dislike a certain experience in Gmail, you now have the ability, if you have agency, to go and build a better version of that, or to like, I don't know, propose a solution
sure,
and go and vibe code something. I
sure,
think if you went and sent in a cold email or just generally a message to someone, or hopefully you have someone in your network
mm,
to say, okay, I hate this feature, I built something to fix it, that
mm,
shows off the bat for like any sort of person who's looking to employ you that A, you're willing to do the work, B,
mm.
you've done the work for free and you don't need to do it, and three,
Nice.
you want
Yeah,
to solve the problem, right? You're passionate about solving the problem.
yeah,
So I think if you're looking to break in, I mean, the way that I actually got my internship at Bitpanda was funny because I kind of was obviously understood what their business was, understood what they were looking for, and I wrote a white paper, so just like a one pager on
wow,
a company that I thought they should invest in. And
yeah,
it was funny because they were actually investing in it at the same time as I was telling them about it. So
yeah,
it was coincidence that basically that happened, but at the same time it was clearly good instincts on my part to be like, this makes sense for what you guys invest in. This makes sense for like a project for you guys to work with. Um, and the mentor that I have, Pav, he
mm,
said to me like, "Oh wow, this was like the key thing that set you apart. Obviously, everyone has a good CV. Everyone comes from a good university. There are some things that are pretty common when you look at a very good place to work, but there are some things that set people apart, and he was like, that set you really apart. So I think,
Mm.
yeah, in this day and age where you can do work pretty easily,
Yeah.
I think doing that's really important.
Mm.
And then I think, just showing the ability that you are interested. I think for a lot of people, especially grads, it's very hard to know what you want to do. But
Yeah.
if you can go into a room and clearly show them that that is what you want to do with passion, then
Mm.
they're more likely to hire you than someone who comes in saying, I've heard product is a good job. I've heard it creates a lot of CEOs,
Yeah.
and like the common things people say when they go to product jobs.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say like, I love problem solving, I really
Mm.
enjoy the thought of like taking an idea and like executing on it, and and the
Mm.
execution is the main part, right? Like you can sure write a billion PRDs and like a product requirement doc, and you can write so many tickets. You can be the best person who writes the best tickets, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to like executing on it and making sure that things get done.
That's strong. If I were to summarize what you said, be passionate or like inquisitive with like why you're actually doing or interested in what you're doing. Have high agency because
Yep.
there's like so many that it's so much more easier. You can argue that you can sort of like mock up something to showcase to someone, and yeah, just like be kind of audacious as well. Just like go straight away to it and be like, hey, by the way, like this is what I did. Like, you know, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
nice,
makes that's a good summary.
nice. um, Going to Thinker's Table, I'm really very intrigued by the fact that it's so focused on deep tech. And would you say it's that interest has been sort of like developed over time whilst you are within your placement years or internships, or has that been something that you've always been interested in before placement years or university? And sorry, the reason why I brought up that specific timeline is because it seems to be around the same time that you were in uni. That's when you first launched Thinker's Table, right?
Yeah. No, it's kind of like the focus that, or like the kind of mission of the podcast is to highlight
Mm,
voices or highlight
mm,
operators within deep tech who
mm,
otherwise wouldn't be. So obviously,
mm,
a big trend you see with lots of podcasts is
mm,
that they highlight CEOs or like really senior figures within companies, which is great. I think that's obviously needed, and those people
yeah.
are there for a reason because they've obviously done a good job and they've earned that position. But I
Mm,
think when I was at places like AWS and
mm,
Bitpanda, and to be honest, anywhere I've worked, there are
mm,
so many people who are incredibly talented who are way
mm,
closer to their work than a CEO. Like someone who does go to market at a startup will be so close to understanding how go to market works for whatever industry that they're looking at or whatever geography they're looking at. And so
mm,
that person can give like an expert playbook on like go to market for I don't know, go to market for like AI
yeah.
services within Canada. Like
Yeah.
that's such a niche thing that someone can speak on, but the lessons play out true wherever. I'm sure if you looked at go to market in Canada, you could probably find a lesson or two that could apply to go to market in London.
Mm,
So the
sure.
thesis and the mission has always been like, there's really smart people. You would never meet them if you didn't work at these places or you weren't in the like tech world or any of this stuff. So
Mm,
getting their voices highlighted is more important than like a CEO's. And then the
mm,
second part of it is deep tech's just fun to me. Like it's
mm,
enjoyable.
mm,
I really enjoy like thinking about really complex future looking problems that we will
mm,
solve and obviously are being solved behind the scenes, but
sure.
you don't hear about as much.
Mm,
Like I've met some crazy people, like founders and operators who are doing like drones with hands on them, rocket scientists, people who are building autonomous vehicles, which now seem normal. But if you said that 3 years ago, you'd be like, "What are
yeah.
you talking about?"
Yeah. That's true.
Um, so like those types of things, like people have been working on them for decades. Like Waymo and like Wave in
Yeah.
the UK has existed since 2013. So people have been doing autonomous vehicles for the last almost like 15 years, but they probably haven't been on many podcasts because no one saw a Waymo or no one saw an autonomous vehicle.
Mm,
But they exist and they have very interesting stories that you would never hear about. So that's kind of the reason to focus on it. I think it's cool to have the like forward looking perspective.
yeah. That's awesome. And was there like a particular spark that um or like a click moment that you know that made you like crap? Okay, I just wanna get started now. Boom! First episode of Thinker's Table. Like, was there a moment leading up to that?
Yeah, so the original name of Thinker's Table was Cryption XYZ, which is a terrible who I don't know where I thought of the name. It was a
Yeah,
terrible, terrible, terrible name. But the
yeah,
original name was that
yeah,
because it was focused around crypto. That's kind of where I got the inkling, which was like I was in had obviously started my work in crypto professionally in
mm,
2021.
mm,
And so when I started that, that was still relatively early. Obviously, it was much later than like whatever the general consensus, like crypto had existed for the last 12, 13 years at that point.
sure.
But leading up to that, like there was just starting to be that kind of like, oh wait, crypto's becoming something. And then there was obviously the whole wave of like, okay, wait, crypto's fake. Like
Yeah,
everyone who I spoke to when I first started my job was like, you are a crazy person. I don't know what you think you're doing.
yeah,
Crypto's gonna fail. It's all like up and down. It doesn't mean anything.
yeah,
And so I think that's where the spark came from, which was like I had so many people being like, crypto is not a real thing. I was like, it is. It might not be real today, but it will be
yeah,
real at some point.
yeah,
And so I was like, this is interesting. I should get people who are in my network, who I'm fortunate enough to have my network, to come
mm,
along and speak about like problems or things that they're building, which are like a couple of years away.
mm. That's dope. That's really dope. And somewhere Cryption XYZ and then Thinker's Table, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, I'm glad I made the transition. That was such a bad name. It's such a bad name. But yeah, yeah.
I feel whenever like obviously during the moment, like because I've had this some of these moments as well, but like yeah, I whenever you like start a project or something, you pick up a name or like a color scheme or like editing type of style,
Yeah,
you're like, yo, this is like the coolest fucking thing ever. And then when you look back, it's like, ah, this is actually cringe or
yeah.
whatever.
This
Like
sucks. Yeah.
it's just like part of the journey. So it kind of like shows that like the journey that you've been on. So that's cool. There's lots of moving parts to podcasting. And there's like from prospecting to pitching to editing. Where would you say is like your first love of the process, and why?
Good question. I think the first love is probably prospecting and like I guess
Mm.
pitching.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really fun to just be like, oh, you're a cool person. What's your story? Tell me about your story. And
Mm,
then writing like a question sheet and understanding that person and
mm,
understanding like what insight they're about to give to the audience. I think that's really, really part of it that I find really fun. I
mm,
do quite like the conversations as well. I've been very
mm,
fortunate that a lot of the episodes in season two, which I've only
mm,
dropped one,
mm,
um, are in person. So most of them are recorded in person. Obviously,
mm.
most in London. But at the end of the day, it's been really fun because like I've gone to visit like offices of these people. Like there's a few startup founders who I've gone to like been to their office. So every single recording location is different entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it adds a certain element to it. And I quite like the artistry of just it being different. Like I've always
Yeah.
had this idea where I want to record a podcast where I'm
Mm.
playing tennis with the person or playing paddle with them.
That's cool.
Because I think that'd just be fun. Like I'd enjoy
Yeah.
watching that. I enjoy watching podcasts when they're like in the car together. So I
Yeah. Yeah.
recorded
Yeah.
one of those with my
Yeah.
friend Zane.
Mm.
So I think like the form factor is also quite interesting. I quite like thinking of like things that could keep it engaging because I appreciate like a podcast is quite long.
Mm.
If it's not relevant to you, it's probably going to be harder for you to continue to listen to.
Correct.
But if like someone's playing tennis, and obviously
Yeah.
this is just us being a bit brain rotted as a
Yeah.
society,
Yeah.
but like someone's playing tennis and you're listening to them talk about
Yeah.
like I don't know whatever they're talking about, it's way
Yeah.
way more interesting.
Yeah. It kind of shows how we are so tuned in to have multiple stimulus to ensure engagement whilst watching something. I'm quite curious, like, have you ever torn
You're
apart
good.
app when approaching a podcast in terms of like
What?
building and growing a podcast?
Yeah, I think the thing is your a product mindset is basically just thinking in systems and structures, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much the entire way that I run the podcast. Like
Mm.
the systems that I usually run is like I have a mega prompt that I use that basically does a lot of research on the guests and
Nice.
does like really target. Like there was one guest that I had on, and it somehow figured out that she lived in Prague when she was a child, and
The
then
heck?
moved, or like obviously when she was a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think maybe it's because I think obviously I think she had posted about it somewhere. I found the information somewhere. It wasn't like
Yeah.
like going to some weird
Yeah.
back alley, but like it found the information, right? And it was
Yeah.
like really good because then I asked the question, I'm like, how did you find growing up in Prague? And then you know, being from a certain ethnic background, and then I love being in London, like all the different
Mm,
tech hubs, like how do you find them? So like that was actually something I probably wouldn't have found out if I didn't like ask them or like have an
mm,
initial call with them. So that was really interesting. So that's a cool system I use. Then the
yeah.
other thing is my episode is always structured the same way, which is like an intro, kind of questions that are topical of like the time,
Yes.
and then a quick
Yeah.
fire round, and then going on to like very deep questions onto like either their startup or
Yeah.
what they do, or basically like their specific niche type of
Yeah.
thing that they do. So yeah, I think the product mindset also helps you understand what are you solving for? Like, what's the problem, or why do people listen to you? Like, some
Mm,
people like listening to. I listen to the FT News briefing every morning. The reason I
mm,
listen to it every single morning is because it gives me financial news, and I don't need to like read and sit on a tube. I just listen to it, and it's
yeah. Yeah.
engaging and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's solving the problem that I don't want to sit on my phone when I'm on the tube, but I want news,
Yeah.
and that's the problem. The same way here, when I think about like what am I trying to solve for people when I'm making a podcast, is like interesting stories that you wouldn't have heard of, and like other people that you wouldn't have heard from, but
Mm,
at the same time intersection with like a playbook of like this is how you
mm,
do go to market here, this is how you do engineering here, this is how you do product here, these are the
mm,
lessons from this founder and like what they learned from like YC or something.
mm,
So I always think about it like, if I am a listener of podcasts, would I listen to it? If yes,
yeah.
then continue.
Yeah.
And like if no, why would I not? And how can I change that? But I
Mm,
found that it's the product mindset is interesting because it's not always the case, right? There are viral moments. I've had lots of friends who obviously do content and do other things, and they've
mm,
had viral moments, and that's done really well for them. And that's
mm,
actually made a lot of people stay on, even outside of what they thought they were listening for. They actually thought they were listening for like insights into what they're doing, but actually they're
yeah.
listening because their personality of the person is very engaging. So
Mm, mm.
there are certain times where I think you need a product mindset, but you need to be a little
Yeah.
bit flexible and understanding like why do people listen.
That really reminds me of so my previous guest was also one of my best friends, and she is a chiropractor, but also she also does like content creation as well. And she mentioned that her
Nice.
first few content was just focusing on chiropractic stuff, and didn't get anywhere. But the moment she just like started showcasing content about like her mom, like, or this is like day in the life of like my mom, blah blah blah, that shit just blew up. And she was like,
Yeah.
"What the heck?" Like, people are like much more. I'm a chiropractor, but people don't give a shit about my chiropractic stuff, but they actually give a shit about like who I am and sort of like my mom's journey. So it kind of just shows, yeah, to your point about like, yes, treat it like a product, but also be flexible. That like, there are certain, I guess, variables that you can't really control, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you can still, I guess, influence in the way that the audience perceives you, right? You can,
Mm.
for example, with your friend who showcased her mum, that's an emotional thing. People
Yeah,
enjoy looking after their parents, making sure their parents are healthy. So
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
I'm assuming they were like, okay, wow, so I need to start doing this for my mum, or I need to start
yeah,
thinking about like what I should do. So it's like the emotional part of it also is it's just very, very smart strategy.
yeah, yeah. No, that's dope. And you're 9 episodes into Thinker's Table, right? If I'm not wrong. And
I've
uh,
done one whole season and then an episode of the new season. So 11, 10, who knows?
okay. So sorry. So 11 episodes so far. What have you learned from interviewing your guests? Like, have you learned anything about yourself, or have you sort of like extrapolated any learnings that inform who you are, like where your interests are, etc.?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning is consistency is key.
Mm,
Like I said to you, I started the podcast in 2023,
yeah.
and the uploading has been very up and down and etc.
Mm,
And I've obviously had so many kind people in my life who have like referred me to other guests, or been
mm,
like I've had someone on and they've been like, oh, this person would be great for the podcast and whatever. So it's like I don't have an issue with at this point. I have a great network of people who are very keen to support me, which is great.
yeah.
But actually, the biggest learning that I've learned is consistency is key,
Yeah.
and that comes from probably having the systems in place. So
Mm,
I'm great at recording. I'll
mm,
go, I will set up the camera, I will be in person with that person, I'll have a chat with them, we'll go for a coffee, we'll have a lunch, we'll do whatever. But then the
mm,
follow up, which is like, when do you want to post, what's the cadence, how often do you want to post, when does the person want you to post? Like if it's a startup founder,
Yeah.
they may be doing like a fundraiser, like how do you intersect those things? So like there are these certain elements which you basically need to think of it like a second job.
Mm.
And that requires this consistency. That requires like either an hour a day or half an hour a week or whatever your system is and however much time you want to spend on it. But to
Mm.
make sure you're consistently doing it, because in theory, if I had been consistently posting once a month since
Yeah.
2023,
Yeah.
I would have what, like
30.
36, maybe
Yeah.
40,
Yeah.
50 episodes,
Yeah.
and I don't. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the reality of that is because the systems that you need to have in place is like record, then you give yourself like a personal deadline or a personal like
Correct.
SLA to be like,
Correct.
in 5 days I'm gonna upload it into my laptop or into my Riverside or wherever, and then in the next 5 days I'm gonna create the trailer, and in the
Yeah.
next 5 days I'm gonna create the clip so that in a
Yeah.
month I can release it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest learning I've had from day one. I feel pretty confident that I'm a good interviewer. I keep it
Yeah.
engaging. I like speaking to people, and I can ask them like pretty good questions to get under the surface a little bit.
Sure.
Um, but the consistency and the systems thing is what takes it from like, 11 random episodes that we're talking about today
Yeah.
versus like 10 seasons with like 100 episodes where you get like a, potential mind share in a certain space. And there's other ways you can do that. There's events, there's in person, like live recordings and other stuff
Yeah.
you can do. But
Yeah.
all of that has to come from you being consistent on actually just posting the
Correct.
episodes so that
Correct.
people are like, okay, come do an event here or whatever. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's just the biggest lesson. I think you can apply that to most things in life. But yeah.
Yeah. Got you. It's kind of very synonymous to like the a lot of people are say like say person A is motivated to like I don't know lose 10 kilos for example. So like they'll probably be emotionally driven to be like okay I'm gonna run on my motivation to lose 10 kilos in say 3 months. But what they're probably missing out is that they have to build that system for them to reach that outcome. And for them and they should probably design it in a way that's like um, design it by input driven. So like, okay, I should go to the gym 3 times a week, for example, and that way that will get me closer to my output. So I think that's sort of like I feel like that sort of thinking it hasn't been that widespread among people as much as I like to see. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of content, but like I don't think that's reflected on like say conversations wise. And I feel
Yeah.
like start thinking more systems um, centered. I think that'll be in my opinion, I think that'll be much more better for society overall. But who knows? Who
Yeah.
am I,
No,
right?
no, and you're right. No, no, you're right. Like the habit thing is so important. If you want to lose 10 kilos, it's way better for you to say I'm going to go to the gym or whatever, do whatever you want to do 4 times a week, than
Yeah.
say I'm going to lose 10 kilos in 3 months. Because firstly, if you get to the 10 kilos, you may then be not motivated to keep the 10 kilos
Keep
off.
correct.
Secondly, if you don't hit it within 3 months, firstly, is it realistic? Is the goal realistic
Yeah.
to begin with? So you have to lose like 4 kilos a month, which is somewhat unrealistic.
Yeah.
And then secondly, like if you are going to do that, then what are you going to do if you don't hit it in 3 months? Do you give up? Do you carry on? Do you then
Mm,
stretch your goal? Like
mm,
it causes a whole bunch of like consequences and dominoes that fall. So
yeah.
yeah, I think keeping like the system of inputs in place is
Yeah.
what probably takes you from being like you know from here
Yeah.
to then being much much bigger.
For sure. For sure. And taking back the time a bit, like when you were first like starting out the podcast, or like whilst also balancing, say, your work full time work, like how did you balance the time? Um, yeah, I'm very because I've spoken to a lot of guests and they're like, I lose sleep, for example. Like, would you say that's the case for you? Or
I think it depends on what type of how you're running it. I
yeah,
think for me, it's just an evening thing that I'm fortunate enough to do, right? So I obviously have my work, which sometimes can run quite late, but
yeah,
regardless, it takes 2, maybe 3 hours if you're recording in person with someone to like go to the location, set up your camera, record the thing for 40 minutes,
mm,
unpack, whatever. So that whole process is 3 hours.
mm,
In theory, afterwards you have your thing, you edit your stuff. That should take you maybe another 3 to 5 to 7 to 10.
Yeah.
So realistically, you're spending somewhere about, like, let's just say 12 to 15 hours an episode. If it's like really, if you're doing all the editing and you have
Mm,
no help and you have no AI and you're doing nothing, you're doing it all manually, that's
sure.
really how long it should take.
Yeah.
And if you want to do one a month, 12 hours in a month is pretty easy. So I don't think I've lost sleep over it, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest, no. But there have been some sprints. So like I had a period in the summer where I recorded like 4 episodes within like 4 days, or like four
Mm,
episodes within like a week, just to
mm,
get them all batch recorded, so
yeah.
that I could like then edit them and start getting them produced, or not produced, but like edited and then out there. So I
Nice.
think that helps me, but that's also similar to what you were saying, which is like the inputs and the outputs and the
Mhm.
systems. So it can be the case where, like, if you literally just did even one a week, you
Mm,
just have like a Monday to Friday situation where it's like
mm,
Monday you record, Tuesday you make the trailer, Wednesday you make the clips,
mm,
Thursday you release the clips in the trailer, Friday
mm.
you release the episode. And that's like a very simple, probably like maybe an hour or two a day. And yeah, that would probably eat into most of your free time,
Yeah.
if you have a job. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I think for me it was okay because I've done it similarly in a product way, in like a sprint, to be like, this
Nice.
is the sprint of recording, this is the sprint of
Yeah.
editing, this is the sprint of releasing.
Nice.
And I think that's what helps most.
Nice. That segues really nicely to my next question, and this is a question that I ask a lot of every episode. But were there any transferable learnings that you've taken from your day job, but also your podcast, and applied to one another?
Yeah, I think it's knowing what people want is the most important part.
Mm,
So in my day job as a product person, I have to understand, before anyone ever says it to me, before there's data, like I have to have a somewhat of a gut instinct alongside data, alongside customer input, alongside a bunch of other inputs. But there is something to be said where, like, as a product person, you need to somewhat have a good sense of the market and
yeah.
to have a gut feeling of like, my customer doesn't know they want this in 6 months, but they will want this in 6 months. Like, for
Mm,
example, a big new kind of piece of tech in the digital assets world has been prediction markets. So like Kalshi and Poly Market, where you can bet on an outcome of something
yeah.
happening. And one thing is, like, it's now become a like trading desk in the biggest hedge funds in the world. Like, people like the biggest hedge funds and the biggest quant trading firms are employing people to work on prediction markets desks
Wow.
because they know that they can make money from it.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, like, Kalshi and Polymarket have existed since 2021.
Mm,
They obviously faced lots of regulatory hurdles. They were like told by the SEC you can't run, it's basically sports gambling, and they're still running into a few problems with like specific state licenses of like running, because it's basically like sports betting. But
mm,
aside from that, that's been there for a number of years. And like we saw it in the most recent presidential election, where like Kalshi had their biggest volume day. But
mm,
as a product person, you should know that that's happening. You should know that prediction markets exist, and you should know that if regulatory winds shift in 12 to 18 months, every single one of your customers will want that.
mm.
And so then you then have to do that work either early or really late.
Yeah.
So there are obviously companies like there's Robinhood have launched their own prediction markets, Coinbase have launched their own prediction market,
Mm,
but I'm assuming, and I don't know because I haven't spoken to somebody in their team in prediction markets, they probably would have started that work 6 months ago. They wouldn't have started that, a week before. That's not possible for
yeah.
them to have built like an entire product around that. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think knowing what people want is super important in my day job, and then
Mm,
knowing what people want is super important to make a podcast engaging.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the same thing where, if you're not actually appealing to anyone, if people don't are not learning, if people are not entertained, if
Yeah. Mm,
people don't find you interesting, then
mm,
why they just won't listen to you, right? So,
yeah.
and I think it's iteration, right? In the same way in product, you like probably put one thing out and you put another thing out, and you put another thing out. In
Mm,
podcasts, it's the same thing. Every episode you're learning, where do people stop off? I'm sure you have, or you've looked at a graph on like Spotify of like retention, where like everyone
videos.
will drop off at a certain point. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly, right? And it's like you can learn from that retention graph of like, okay, you need to make, and I'm a big fan of the podcast, not so much the entrepreneur. I mean, I don't know him super well, but um, a Diary of a CEO, great podcast, right?
Oh yeah.
Amazing podcast, great trailers, super
Yeah.
engaging. Like, The
Yeah.
one trailer that they put together, 60 seconds, is enough for me to be like, wow, this is so interesting. Let me go watch it. So
Yeah.
I think that's super interesting because, they know what people want. And
Yeah.
you have to apply the same thing to be like, what does somebody watching this want to know about Y Combinator or
Yeah.
this or that? Like, what do they actually want to know? So it's super interesting in that sense that, yeah, knowing what people want is the most transferable skill.
Mm. No, that's huge, man. That's huge, and it super makes sense as well in terms of like how, if I were to say kind of like imagine myself in your shoes, that you kind of like see and approach things. So I love that. So that thanks a lot for sharing. And if you were to give an advice to someone thinking about starting a podcast or just starting that creative thing, like what would you say to them?
Well, I don't know if I have much advice because I know I'm definitely not the person to speak on this, but I'm definitely not the voice of authority because I don't have any real
Mm,
claim to fame here. But
mm,
if I had to give a piece of advice from my learning, it's that
mm.
if you want to start something, firstly start it.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is the first step for sure, always.
Right.
But know that if it's something you want to do and you want to be committed to, create a consistent system around it.
Mm,
Create
mm.
something that allows you to actually scale the thing in the way you want to scale it.
Yeah.
Is super important. If it's
Yeah.
something that you're like, oh, let me go try it, let me see if it works, that's fine for your first episode. But then
Yeah.
once, or maybe even for your first five. But when you've done your first five, you know if you want to do the thing or not. Like you
Yeah.
know that you're like, oh, I need to go edit my trailer. Like you have that instinct where it's like, I don't know, you're sat at lunch and you're like, oh wait, I really want to go produce this thing, or I really want to go here, or I really want to go do this, I really want to go record with that person. And if that's what's happening in your brain, then go and do the thing. Right? There's nothing that should stop you. And therefore it should be like, okay, now that I'm committed to this, let me go build a system around it. Let me go do my best job that I can do. I think that would be my lesson is just make sure that you can make sure that once you're set on it, you really build that system around it.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I don't think I can offer advice
No,
on this topic in the way in the way that you think.
nah, don't say that, bro. I mean, dude, you've got some like cool guests in your podcast as well. I mean, some of them like CEOs of like like scale ups, etc., and also sort of like pretty cool industry names. So like, dude, kudos to you as well, man. So yeah,
Thanks, I
but
appreciate it.
another thing that you mentioned that kind of got me thinking as well is like, say, I don't know, if someone wanted to start a podcast, I let me know if you agree with this or not. But like, um, I feel like if they look to say the Diary of CEO as a playbook of like how to edit videos, for example, I think I would probably tell them, hey, just like copy those ones that are actually ranked the top 5 or the top 10 podcasts of like the past 5 years, because there's a reason why they're all so engaging, right? And then after that, then you can also, that's one thing in terms of editing. But then also, I guess if you were to think about like kit, for example, just get like it doesn't have to be the most expensive mic, but if you
Yeah,
want, yeah, you just get something, or even like AirPods, because it can kind of work as well. So like you don't have to make it that complicated, and I guess the goal is just try to make it
yeah,
as easy for you to execute as possible. So that's what
yeah.
I really that's what, yeah, it thought, resonated in my head when you were going through that. Do you have anything to add with regards to that, or?
No, I think that's right. I have been victim of enjoying to buy interesting things. See, like I have a drone. I don't really use my drone, but like
Oh, that's cool.
I do. I know this is the thing. It's very cool. I've used it here and there. Like if I've been on holiday, or if I've
Yeah,
done this, or if I've done that, I've like used it to record something random.
yeah,
Like I went on holiday with some friends to Spain, and we were all playing paddle, and I like recorded us playing paddle, and it looks cool. It looks so cool, right? But
yeah.
there is actually no use of it. So yeah, I agree that knowing the lowest possible, the smallest possible surface area you need to go
Mm,
and go through that door, or like I said, execute, is the most important bit. But I think also understanding why you're doing it is very important. Like,
correct.
I think that's probably what keeps you going, slash, you know, make sure that you don't keep on going. If
Mm,
you're doing it for a specific reason that you have in mind that's very personal and I think like quite, internally motivated, I think usually that ends up going better than something that's externally motivated. Or if you're like, I want to scale up to 100 episodes so I can get sponsorship X. That's
Yeah.
probably not going to be as easy to be motivated by it if it's
Correct.
like the other side is like, I want to create this podcast so that I can, have interesting people on, and I have this mission of,
Mm.
operators who are smarter than their CEOs, come along and speak about the thing. The key question I actually ask everyone is like, what do you think you know better than your CEO?
Ooh, that's
Um,
good.
which is a great question to ask, and it always comes up with a very interesting answer, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that's the whole thing where it's like you got to understand why you're doing the thing, and that's probably what I would say as well. Like
Mm.
the equipment's great, but the why is the most important metric.
Mm. And do you foresee yourself doing podcasting for like say the next 5 years?
Yeah, I love doing it. I think I could do it for,
For
for quite a long time.
yeah.
I think the thing that I think with podcasting that's interesting is I don't know where it will go in terms of what podcast I will end up doing. So right now, what I'm doing is obviously interviewing people and doing,
Right.
interviewing operators, but I really enjoy news podcasts. I think they're very interesting. I don't see many AI news podcasts. That could be something
Mm.
that's super interesting. So I think there's scope out there, but I do love the process of creating and then executing and then putting it out there. That
Yeah.
part is really fun. So yeah, I think I'll definitely be podcasting for a while amongst other things. But yeah,
You just reminded me of I had an ex-colleague who moved back to New Zealand, but since he moved back, he has his own kind of like podcast in a way, where he talks about AI development in New Zealand and Australia as well. And he's sort of like grown to
nice.
become the thought leader on that space because he's also consistently posting on LinkedIn too. So yeah, if you ever want to like, be put in touch with him, I'm more than happy to because he's such a cool guy. So yeah, um,
Yeah, no, and that's a great way, right? Like,
yeah,
clearly his why was like he wants to highlight the AI news within Australia and New Zealand,
all
and
right,
so he just went about doing that, and that's like that why probably has
yeah,
kept him more consistent than anything else. Because, yeah, I mean, firstly, there's probably not many other people doing it, but secondly,
yes,
it keeps him going because he probably is from New Zealand or
yeah,
from
New
somewhere in the
Zealand, yeah,
region, and so that probably is like a thing of pride where he wants to make sure that people know that the US is great in AI, China is great in AI, but also New
yeah, yeah,
Zealand is great in its own sort of ways, and that's probably what drives him as well.
yeah. And you mentioned about that intrinsic or internal motivation. Like I watched your recent episode with Asti Wagner and
Yeah,
based on gain points as a food blogger, and that's why it birthed the start of her startup as well. So I think like especially in a startup like that's like that's like a mix of like the whole world is basically the startup. So I think the fact that they're still gone on for like 2 years now, 2 3 years,
yeah. I
is
think they've just had their like fourth anniversary or something, so they've been doing
correct.
really well. And they launched in New York as well. So
York.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that's also a given about like yeah, it's just like if as long as you yourself identify within that, that should be more than a reason to for you to just continue with whatever you want to go for. Um, we are coming towards the end of the episode. I want to hit you with a quick fire round now. So
let's do
um,
it.
I'm gonna hit you with say maybe 6 questions.
Okay,
First one, favorite city to visit.
to visit. That's so hard. Oh, that's so hard. I'm such a big traveler. That's so hard.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah,
the hardest question you could have asked.
yeah.
Shit. Okay, I'm gonna give us a unreasonably nuanced answer. New York for just good vibes,
Nice.
Madrid for atmosphere and partying,
Do
and
yeah,
then Hong Kong because I just like the way that it looks. Like I just like the city. I like how small it is. I like how compact it is.
yeah,
Um, there's obviously that was quite difficult, and I'm going to
yeah.
say that I'm probably going to reflect on that and be like, that's not necessarily true.
No,
I
no, no,
got
no
back from
worries.
Dubai last week. No, I got back from Dubai last week. And I was like, oh great, maybe Dubai. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
that's the answer I'm giving. That's the answer I'm giving.
No, that's cool. That's cool. And just to follow up on that, how many countries or city, yeah, countries have you been to since you said you were a
Oh
traveler?
God, I actually don't know if I can count right now. I think probably been to most of Europe, if not all of Europe.
Nice.
I've been to a lot of North America. not been to South America, not been to, actually I have been to a few parts in Africa. I'd say probably in the region of like 50 to
50.
60.
Holy shit, that's like double, triple mine. Holy cow. Good shit, dude. Uh,
Yeah, I think probably about 50, yeah.
nice, nice. Okay, nice. That's cool.
I'm very fortunate. I'm very grateful that I'm able to travel because obviously it's a big privilege in life, but it's one that I like to do more so than other privileges.
Um, oh man, I don't know if you know, but like Manav and I, we always talk about like our like solo travel trips, and I think he's literally in Malta.
Malta. He's in Malta
I'm,
right now. Yeah,
I'm like, what the heck, bro? Like, so
yeah.
yeah, I'm just like, dude, you're always at it. But yeah, next question, favorite movie?
I'm gonna say Inception, but
Yeah,
I wanna put out there Inception. But I think Limitless is great. I
yeah,
think anything Christopher Nolan's great. But I do also like when you said favorite movie, I was like gonna say like Toy Story at the same time. But Toy Story is like a childhood favorite. But like
yeah,
Inception is favorite
yeah.
movie. Yeah.
I mean, I was if someone were to ask me, I would say Ice Age because that's the first movie that I watched in the cinema. So yeah,
See, this is
it,
the thing. I feel like that.
yeah.
I was gonna say, what do you think? But yeah, that's Ice Age is a great one.
Let's go. Favorite food or cuisine to eat?
These are such difficult questions. These are all the like my biggest like I'm a big foodie, I'm a big traveler. So
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
favorite cuisine. I think I'm gonna go Japanese.
Oh yeah.
Because I obviously get great Indian food at home,
Mm,
which I'm very blessed with. That my mum's a
mm,
great cook,
mm.
and that I've learned how to cook from her, so I can also cook the stuff myself.
Yeah.
I think you can make a lot of cuisine at home, but I think
Mm.
one cuisine that you cannot make at home unless you're incredibly skilled is Japanese food. Amongst another, obviously there's variety of foods, but like
Yeah,
Japanese
yeah,
food is incredibly difficult. Like you cannot make sushi at home, right? So I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
that's why I'm going with my favorite cuisine. But what about you? What's your favorite cuisine?
I would say Japanese is like top for me, but I would say like Malaysian, just because I spent like I don't know seven and
Yeah,
a half years away for it, but now that I'm back, I'm just like, oh, it's just like literally right at my doorstep, and there's the reason why it's still top for me. Um, but going back to Japanese cuisine, I mean, there's a reason why what's it? You have like masters who perfected their art, just like mastering that
yeah,
one particular dish, right? So like, yeah, it goes to show that you can't replicate that even at
yeah.
all.
No, but I would say like
Mm.
Malaysian food also great. Like laksa is great,
Oh
nasi
yeah,
lemak
that's
is
good.
great, roti is great. Actually, I was gonna think about ordering a roti place yesterday,
Yeah,
but I was like, it's not healthy. It's not
yeah,
healthy enough. I haven't earned it this week, so let's not do
yeah,
it. But
yeah, yeah.
I would have done. It was very good. It is very good
Nice.
Malaysian food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sweet, awesome. Favorite song to listen to?
Frank Ocean, thinking about you.
Oh, okay. Has that been a favorite of yours since it came out? Wow.
Yeah. I'm a big Frank Ocean Weekend, that type of like I'd say chilled R&B or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. Like that type of music is great, and Frank Ocean's yeah. Child, I actually have a. It's. I mean, give me a second. All three vinyls actually. I have the
Oh,
Weekend Starboy.
no freaking way.
Um, I have this is not actually the real Channel Orange. This is like a fake Channel Orange, but
Yeah.
it is actually the vinyl. The vinyl is in there. And the vinyl does work. But it
Nice.
has like the song list is
Oh yeah.
like Channel Orange, and then the recent one also I got the official Channel Orange Frank
Oh
Ocean one.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
so I'm
huge,
a
man.
big Frank Ocean Weekend
Uh,
person.
are you going to the concert in July? I think or August weekend is coming. With party.
I don't know. I'm still thinking about it because I'm going to
Okay.
a few this year already. I'm going to Leon Thomas.
Oh,
I'm going to
nice,
Miguel.
nice.
So I'm thinking about Weekend, but I saw him 2 years ago on the no, what tour was it? Red album. I should know this clearly. Fake fan, but
Was that
yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, it was in London. It was 2023.
yeah, I was there as well. I went to that concert too.
Okay.
The one the one in
Okay.
the
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
stadium.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And they had
Mm.
Kate Renata opening.
Yes.
Um.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't remember what tour it was. But that one I went to. So I'm like,
Yeah.
there's only so many times I can see The Weeknd. Even though he's like one of my favorite artists. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, strong, strong. Um, and then lastly, favorite quote,
Favorite quote. That's actually really difficult because I don't think I have a favorite quote.
or is there?
Okay, I think that the adage or the wisdom, which is like
Yes,
every problem has a solution, is
yeah,
very true, and I think that's a whether it's a quote or just an adage of wisdom, I'm not
yeah.
sure, but that's one thing that I think is very true in life.
That's strong, man. That's strong. Final two questions before we wrap up. I guess, firstly, what does locking in mean to you personally?
Focus. It's about what you actually want to do,
Mm,
making sure that you're very, very mindful about what you're doing, and
mm,
therefore focusing on the few things that you want to do as opposed to spreading yourself super thin.
mm,
I think it's very easy in this day and age, and
mm,
I've been victim of it, so I can completely understand
mm,
it. But if you try and focus on everything that looks good or that is new or that is shiny, you'll
mm.
end up finding yourself that you actually are not focusing on what you want or the right thing. So yeah.
Nice, nice. And lastly, what's next for you, Vet? In terms of like professionally, creatively, etc. Like, what should the audience look out for?
Yeah, definitely check out Thinker's Table.
Yeah,
There's all of the season two episodes will be dropping over the next few weeks and months, and then
nice.
season three will be with a new co-host, which I haven't announced yet, so I won't announce
Okay.
it yet. But it will be done with a co-host rather than just me
Yeah.
as the host, solo host. And then professionally, not that many updates for now,
Yeah.
but there will be a few coming. So check it out on LinkedIn.
Nice.
And other than that, I don't think there's much else to update you on. I think most things are currently in motion. So let's see where they end up and how they play out.
Strong, man. Love
And
that.
I'll
Love
keep
that.
you updated.
Hell yeah. How can people reach out to you, by the way, if anyone wanted to hit you up? Is there like a
Yeah.
social handle, etc. Or
Yeah,
um
there's Tech by Ved. Tech by Ved
yes,
is the page that I use to create videos, so check out that.
yeah,
Also, you can always ping me on Thinker's Table, and then my email is ved@vibecoderhouse.com if anyone is interested specifically about
cool.
speaking to me about something more
Yeah,
deeply, and always happy to help and be an ear or just bounce ideas. So feel free to reach out.
that's amazing, man. And guys, I'm gonna put all of like Vet's links anyway in like the yeah when this episode comes out, so you'll see it anyway. But Vet, thank you so much. I really appreciate you hopping on, us having this chat. I mean, I can't believe it's been like an hour already. So that goes to show
Yeah,
that time flies when you're having fun. And I most certainly did. So thank you
indeed.
so much, man. Appreciate you. And yeah, for those listening, thank you as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye.